Welcome back. We have two more speakers today, and they are online from the University of Roma Tre in Italy. We have Annalisa Tota, who is full professor at the Department of Philosophy, Communication and Performing Arts. And Leah Luchetti, Adjunct Professor in Sociology of Communication and Media. Very welcome. Can you hear me there?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you so much.
Very good. And then we can hear you as well perfectly. And very welcome to this symposium and to Landskrona Theatre. You're free to start.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, first of all, for this very inspiring conference. It is such a pity that this year we cannot be with you, but we do hope next year to be there. And so this year we are presenting a paper on the representation of the migrants. So I see really a kind of leitmotif, a fil rouge between this presentation and the others that have been presented before. And the title is Repositioning the Migrant in the Cultural Background, Migrant Memories and Photography. And moving to our next slide, we see that we have chosen to start by showing a photo, a very famous one by Nick Brandt, The May Brick, and then we have also a quotation. But before I would like to say something about Nick Brandt, I think that with his work, he challenges in a very effective way the stereotypes. He used the power of beauty to denounce injustice and to create a new awareness in the viewers and in the public opinion. I consider his work exceptional, inspiring, very effective from a communicative perspective. Somehow, by displaying very distant words, he succeeds in provoking the punctum, as Roland Barthes would say, in all his viewers. And moving to our next slide, we have also decided to show this quotation. It's a very classic quotation, very well known, from Alfred Schutz. The stranger approaches the other group as a newcomer in the true meaning of the term. At best, he may be willing and able to share the present and the future with the approached group in vivid and immediate experience. Under all circumstances, however, he remains excluded from such experiences of its past. Seen from the point of view of the approached group, he is a man without a history. And this is exactly the main point and the reason why we have decided to quote Alfred Schutz at the very beginning of our presentation, because somehow our implied idea, and it's not so even so original, it's something that many scholars have pointed out, is the fact that to fight against racism is very important to put again the citizens, the migrants, in their cultural background. Somehow they are detached. They are presented to us as migrant souls, and this is something we have to recreate. If we succeed in recreating and repositioning the migrants in the background, in showing all the culture and all the wonderful world from where they come, then we can contribute to create a public and social imagery against racism. And moving to our next slide, I would like to underline some main point of our presentation. They are also somehow introductory. Of course, the first question is, can we use photography to fight against racism and to create an anti-racist imaginary? And of course, we aim at analyzing the different visual representation of refugees and migrants in the Italian public discourse and their role in shaping the collective imaginary and the public knowledge. In Italy, the situation of migration is very somehow peculiar because it's not so much the number. We will see in the second part of our presentation, we try to provide you some data, quantitative data about migration, but there is a kind of gap between the public representation of the migration and the data of this migration. And of course, we are in search of a new way of representing migration, able to subvert all these stereotypes that, as it was underlined also in one previous presentation, they are used to convey ideological meaning. They are used as argument for political campaign, and this is really a disaster for democracy. And other further question, how does a photo work in relation to the production of the public knowledge related to migration processes? How can an image contribute to the shaping of the collective imaginary of the migration? Because as you will see, we are at the very beginning of this work. So we will present just some preliminary ideas, some textual analysis of the artists we are focusing on. But then a further step, very, very important, will be to analyze the reception, the effective widespread of those photos, because if we want to think about the impact of those kind of works, of artistic works in the public opinion, we have to be able also to measure somehow, also in qualitative way, not just in quantitative way, the impact of this photo exactly on the public opinion. And going on to the next slide, here we, Leah and I, have thought to provide you some ideas, some concept that we are referring to in this preliminary part of our reflection. And of course, the intertextuality is always a very useful concept to work on photography, and then obviously Studium and Punctum by Roland Barthes, Homo Videns by Sartori. This is an Italian scholar. It's a very important contribution to this debate. And then the very important contribution by Karin Knorr-Cetina, the concept of discourse that I found, and many of us found very, very relevant and useful to understand what's going on with the public opinion and with the changes that have affected the public opinion in contemporary societies. And going to the next slide. Here, just to provide you some ideas, because with the pandemic, with the coronavirus, the situation has become much worse, because somehow the stereotypes, the racism against migrants now has been attached, is together with the fear of the illness. And so here you can see, for example, in this picture, there are children, and usually in the past, photos of children have been always very useful in provoking empathy, solidarity. But even in this case, now children are portrayed as those who can convey the virus. And then the other picture there, I do not know if you can see it very well. There are some writings in Italian, and there is written, if you forget your protective mask, you will have to pay 1,000 euro. If you arrive in Italy on a boat, so if you are a migrant, and they are meaning illegal migrants, then you will get food, accommodation, and the cell phone top up. So this is the idea, no? This is the imaginary that is circulating in Italy and used by many political parties. And going on to the next slide. Please, thank you. And then here we wish to remind some of the other concepts that we have been using to referring to the idea that of course the photographic representation is very useful because through a photo, useful in a negative meaning, of course, through a photo the perception of reality can be strongly manipulated because of course photos seems very, very real, and here we are quoting Stuart Hall, Carrick Norsetina, but you know all this better than us. And then I'm referring also to a previous work published in German by myself, where I was defining the image, the photograph, as a synecdoche, in the way that it's a condenser of reality. It represents a synthesis of that portion of the realities that it depicts. However, even though it always represents only a part, it's easily mistaken by potential viewers as the whole. The specific characteristic of photography make it particularly effective in the transmission of ideological content when the empty space between the part and the whole, the Leerstelle, can be concealed as if it did not exist. It becomes possible to sell a particular point of view as universally valid. And then going to the next, we are here somehow summarizing different ways of representing reality through photography. Of course, it's just a kind of possible list. We do not mean to be exhaustive in any sense, but here we have Roland Barthes, the aesthetic reflexive representation, denunciation, manipulation, propaganda, and then I show to you some of possible example in the next slide of those different. For example, for the notion of meat, you can see here the Italian family on the ferry boat landing at Ellis Island. And here the aesthetic reflexive representation, Nick Brandt, is a very good example of this kind of link between photography and reality. And then this is very easy, denunciation, because we are very, it's a very common genre of photos. And then propaganda, again, this idea that in Italy we have thousands of migrants coming by sea, but it's not true. They are 180, 200, but when in the media we are speaking about the migrants, there is always the idea that we are witnessing a kind of invasion. And then there is all this idea that we have to protect the borders because we have thousands of migrants coming by the sea, which is not true. And then going to the next slide, here we can see, for example, again, the idea that I mentioned also before, that now with this possible COVID infection, now the migrants are not just coming to take all our workplaces and to be supported by Italian citizens, but they also come and infect all of us with coronavirus. So there is also the use and abuse of this kind of images to feed the common fear, to feed the idea that we don't have to have solidarity against migrants, but we have all to become racist. And then going to the next. Here we have some data on migration, and I give the floor to my colleague Lia Luchetti.
Thank you, Annalisa. Yes, as you mentioned before, here we want to introduce some data on migration. Yes, there are the official data taken from the World Migration Report 2020, the Refugee Agency Report, the Italian Ministry Report, and so on. So we present them with a great awareness that these data underrepresent the migration processes, they represent only a part. So the number of international migrants has increased to approximately 272 million, corresponding to 3.5 of the world's population. And then of these 272 million, labor migrants are estimated to be 164 million. And then according to the Global Trend Refugee Agency report, the population of forced migrants amounts to 79.5 million, of which 26 million are refugees. So Syria is still in first place with 6 million, and Afghanistan is in the third place. The number of stateless people worldwide is about 4.2 million, and the Ivory Coast is in first place. From Ivory Coast went one of the photographs you want to highlight in the following slide. So in 2020, 34,133 people landed in Italy. The country of origin of these people are from Tunisia, then Bangladesh, Ivory Coast, Algeria, Pakistan, and then Egypt, Sudan, Morocco, Afghanistan, and Iran. So in Italy, only 21% of the immigrants come from Africa, and above all from North Africa, according to Caritas and Migrants 2020 report. The immigrants living in Italy are above all European and come from countries with a Christian cultural and religious tradition. Let's move to the summary of the data on the migration by sea in Italy. They are closest to the official data because it concerns, of course, number of migrants landed on the Italian shore. Regarding to this data, the entry by sea, according to the number provided to by the Italian Ministry of Internal Affairs, in the period between August 2019 and July 21,618 migrants landed on Italian shores. To get an idea, the San Siro Stadium, the largest stadium in Italy, can host approximately 80,000 people. The countries of departure of those who reached Italy via the Mediterranean Sea route are Tunisia, Libya, and then Turkey. We can observe a significant decline in the number of arrivals via Mediterranean Sea route. We can conclude that, unlike this data, as mentioned before, the issue of landings on the southern coast of Italy is one of the most covered by media and exploited at the political level. Before we have explored the representation of migrants in the Italian public discourse, now we want to verify how this representation can be undermined, can be subverted, and we have chosen to analyze with the theoretical categories, concepts presented before by Annalisa, the project of 4 photographers working on these themes. So the first is Francesco Giusti. He's a documentary photographer that over the years he has explored different approaches, from photojournalistic essay to portrait stories to long-term documentary-based project. He has worked in Africa, in the Mediterranean and the Caribbean area, and in Latin America, and his work have been exhibited in galleries, public institutions, and international events. So with this first project that we want to focus is the rescue, is a collection of personal belongings found on the Greek island Lesbos during the last months of 2015, when the flow of migrants from different nationalities coming from the nearby Turkey by small boats reached a peak. So we analyze with the ADIC concept of Roland Barthes, studium and punctum. So we can first some elements of the photographs, so the background, sand or rock or vegetation or pebbles, and these photos represent ordinary object. Each photo focuses on an object, a pair of trousers, a picture of a woman, passport photo, letters, notes, and so on. So it seems like a catalog of lost objects, object lost and never claimed. So we wonder who lost them, in what situation, and these photos reminds other situation of daily life. For example, I lost my keys or so on. My daughter has lost her hair clip. But at punctum level, they make us understand how these traveling men and women have lost important things. What we are led to wonder, what are you wearing now? They have given up essential part of their identity. It seems a drama of a suspended life, of course, perhaps a past life. Photos, so, is like a bridge between past and present, and these photos recall the empathy, our empathy, to raise awareness of the suffering of the migrants, to invite us to see them as people with stories and affection similar to our own, and to provide part of the biography of the journey and of the migrant community. We move to another project of Francesco Giusti, In Case of Loss, start in 2011 during the Libya crisis at Gaddafi time. The photos was taken in Libya-Tunisia border and in one refugee camp in Tunisia. It is a fact that 300,000 migrant workers fled for their lives to reach refugee camp of the Tunisian border. So a single luggage each is what had allowed to carry as they set out across the Libyan border into Tunisia. So the concept of intertextuality inspires us according a word of everyday life. So we use this concept broadly, seeing a convergence with images from everyday life. So it's like a photo that reminds inventory photos, a report of object, a stock list that is used to confirm our existence, our equipment. So it's like a photo for a personal situation which communicates few emotion. But the other way is a photo of a single luggage. Yes, their own ID picture, each one arranged in a peculiar way to recognize their own belongings among all the others, to find them again in case of loss. So in case of loss, it's important to remember that this is me and this is my life. So it's important to return name, age, face, profession to migrants, in our opinion, and to encourage us to imagine migrants' lives before the tragic event. So we move to another photographer, Rocco Rorandelli. Rocco Rorandelli is another type of documentary photographer, and in this photo series, Topography of Hospitality, he depicts camps in Greece, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and several locations in Italy, official camp built by governments and informal settlements like these two examples. In another series, Trans-Europe Migration, Rocco Rorandelli covered the crisis along the Balkan route, so the transit route for those coming from Asia and the Middle East, especially from Syria, using aerial imaging like this example. So we have compared this photo to what we usually see taken by a drone. So we wonder, what is the drone used for? Is used for aerial photography, is used for cinematography, for military operation, to intelligence mapping, targeting destination, to simulate views, for shooting documentaries, for measurement, for intervention in agriculture. For example, we often use for to go to Google Earth. But with this photo, we can follow the trial of migrants for the final lap of their journey. We can see humans searching for a better life. We can see the universal phenomenon and not the perspective of the individual. We can see aerial photos of the special conformation for the first case, the topography of hospitality of the refugee camp, the peripheral localization, their isolation is like a ghetto from surroundings. And we move briefly to Marcio Emilio Villa and his project Black Italians. Marcio Emilio Villa, born in Brazil and grew up in Italy. He started Black Italian when we was in Paris, were trying to escape the racism and the microaggression he experienced in his childhood. And this photo reminds us of an established representation for us influenced by painting. So in this slide, for us, photos representing a black female body in a pose that evokes a painting of the odalisque of Manet, Matisse, Ingres, Gauguin, Haitian women. Photos focus on the figure of the woman, background is minimized, and photos that subvert the hegemonic representation, that break the exotic boundary, that depict descendant gates and the point of view. This project for us is important also to give importance to second generation photographers and allow us to move from depicting the boats to depicting the migrant in his social and family network. And then the last photographer, Mohamed Decata, born in Ivory Coast at the age of 14 without his parents. He fled his country at war and began a very long journey alone through Guinea, Mali, Algeria, the Sahara, and then arrived in Malta on a boat, and then in Italy in a boat like the previous one to Sicily, and managed to arrive in Rome. Here he came across an association for foreign children, Civico Zero, and he picked up a camera for the first time in his life and discovered his passion for photography. And thanks to the support of a foundation, Piano Terra, opened a photographic workshop for street children in Mali, and he has been following to children workshop at Civico Zero, Rome, the Italian association. So we can see some example of the photo, the picture taken by children during the workshop in Mali, the workshop so-called Kene Space. And with this photo, we can see that Mohamed wants to build a space where children can learn photography as a starting point toward education. So it's important because the author of this photo is part of the community, and this photo brings the skills of young people from Africa, recovering their point of view on reality, and put the migrants in their social and cultural background within their network of social and family relationship. And the last part of our research highlight convergence between the work done by the photographers analyzed and the Migration Museum in Lampedusa, which confirmed the important role played by some cultural institutions. Lampedusa is the famous island in Sicily, is a symbol of boundary, of dialogue between Mediterranean coast. And recently, the Migration Museum has been built, and through some exhibition retraces the roots of migration. And the museum hosts the shipwreck room that offer a multimedia tour in which visitors can try to live the experience of the sea crossing. The museum has recently reopened after the closing imposed by the pandemic, so Annalisa and I continue our research in the next days. We have added some references, so thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you so much.